The Gospel of Mark. The Crucifixion of Jesus. Mark 15:21-32. Introduction. 1. Thus far in Mark's account of the Passion of Christ, we have seen a. The agonizing prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. Mark 14:32-42. b. The betrayal of Judas and arrest in the garden. Mark 14:43-50. c. The beating and mocking at Caiaphas' house. Mark 14:65. d. The denial by Peter. Mark 14:66-72. e. The scourging, beating, and mocking by Roman soldiers. Mark 15:15-20. 2. By this time Jesus would have been physically exhausted. a. Awake for more than 24 hours. b. Suffering from the beatings and scourging already inflicted. 1. Leading to the crucifixion. a. Simon compelled to bear his cross. 1. Jesus started out bearing his cross. John 19:17. a. Likely the wooden crosspiece patibulum, weighing 30 to 40 pounds. b. But it proved too much for him. 2. Simon of Cyrene compelled to bear it for him. Mark 15:21. a. Mark identifies him as the father of Alexander and Rufus. b. The latter possibly known to the church in Rome. Romans 16:13. They compelled one passing by, coming from the country, Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to go with them, that he might bear his cross. Mark 15:21. b. Brought to Golgotha. 1. A place near outside the city. John 19:20. 2. Golgotha, a modified transliteration of the Aramaic word for skull. Mark 15:22. 3. Calvary comes from the Latin word for skull. Luke 23:33. They brought him to the place called Golgotha, which is, being interpreted, the place of a skull. Mark 15:22. c. Wine and myrrh offered but refused. 1. A narcotic drink was sometimes offered to criminals to deaden the pain of crucifixion. 2. Jesus was offered such a drink, but refused. Mark 15:23. 3. Perhaps choosing to experience the ordeal of crucifixion with his full senses, they offered him wine mixed with myrrh to drink, but he didn't take it. Mark 15:23. 2. The crucifixion of Jesus. a. As described by Mark. 1. They crucified him. Mark 15:24 and 25. 2. Amazingly restrained, as are the other Gospel writers. Matthew 27:35. Luke 23:33. John 19:18. 3. Especially when it was the cruelest and most hideous punishment possible. Cicero. Crucifying him, they parted his garments among them, casting lots on them, what each should take. It was the 3rd hour, and they crucified him. The superscription of his accusation was written over him, the King of the Jews. With him they crucified 2 robbers, one on his right hand, and one on his left. The scripture was fulfilled, which says, he was numbered with transgressors. Mark 15:24-28. Those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads, and saying, Ha! You who destroy the temple, and build it in 3 days, save yourself, and come down from the cross. Likewise, also the chief priests mocking among themselves with the scribes said, He saved others. He can't save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, now come down from the cross, that we may see and believe him. Those who were crucified with him insulted him. Mark 15:29-32. 3. Summary of other details. A. The garments. 1. When they crucified him, they divided his garments, casting lots. Mark 15:24. 2. As foretold by David. Psalms 22:18. Be the time. 1. Mark says it was the 3rd hour. Mark 15:25. 2. This would be 9 a.m. in the morning. C. The inscription. 1. Pilate had the charge or accusation made against Jesus posted on the cross. 2. It was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. John 19:20. 3. Each of the Gospel writers record the inscription slightly different. A. Mark. The King of the Jews. Mark 15:26. B. Matthew. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Matthew 27:37. C. Luke. This is the King of the Jews. Luke 23:38. D. John. Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. John 19:20. 4. Reconciling the apparent discrepancy. A. The full inscription may have been "This is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." B. Written in 3 languages, it may have been abbreviated, and each Gospel writer simply chose that which reflected his purpose in his Gospel. D. The 2 thieves. 1. 2 robbers were crucified with Jesus. Mark 15:27-28. 2. Possibly co-insurrectionists with Barabbas who had been released. Either blasphemy and mockery. 1. Those who passed by, with the false charge made against him. Mark 15:29 and 14:57-58. 2. The chief priests and scribes, taunting Jesus to make them believe. Mark 15:31-32. 3. Even the 2 thieves, though one later recanted. Mark 15:32. Luke 23:39-43. Conclusion. 1. Thus begins the 6 hours that will result in the death of Jesus. A. An excruciating death in of itself. B. Made worse by the beatings and scourging, the mocking before and during. 2. What can we learn from this terrible event? A. The terribleness of the guilt of sin. Romans 3:23 and 6:23. B. The greatness of God's love for man. Romans 5:6-9. 1 John 4:9-10. C. The inspiration of Jesus' sacrifice. 1 Peter 2:21-25. The end. The Gospel of Mark. The crucifixion of Jesus. Mark 15:21-32.